A dog is lying on the floor, not sleeping, not quite awake, just waiting. The house is silent except for the low mechanical hum of appliances hidden behind walls. Afternoon light stretches across the room in long pale bands. Dust drifts through the air, moving slowly enough to seem suspended in time. Nothing happens. Minutes pass. Then something changes. The dog lifts its head, not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough to reveal that its attention has shifted towards something that does not yet exist for anyone else. The driveway is empty. No footsteps approach the door. No engine can be heard. No shadow passes the window. And yet the animal rises. It walks toward the entrance. It waits. Several minutes later, a car turns onto the street. A familiar person comes home. Most people have witnessed some version of this. Many dismiss it immediately. The dog heard the car. The dog learned the schedule. The dog recognized a pattern. Simple, ordinary, case closed, except that, in some cases, none of those explanations seem to fit. And that is where the story begins. Because hidden inside one of the most familiar relationships on Earth is a question that has unsettled owners, researchers, and animal behaviorists for decades. Do dogs know we are coming home before we arrive? At first, the question sounds almost childish. The kind of thing people discuss casually while watching a pet stare at the front door. But some questions become stranger the longer they survive. This is one of them, because the deeper researchers looked, the more difficult the answer became. And beneath that answer lies something even more unsettling. Not a mystery about dogs, a mystery about perception itself. Humans have always underestimated animals. Again and again throughout history, we have drawn invisible lines between ourselves and everything else. Language, reason, emotion, memory, consciousness. Each time we believed we had found a uniquely human trait, the natural world quietly disagreed. Birds solved problems once thought impossible. Octopuses demonstrated startling intelligence. Whales communicated across oceans. Elephants appeared to mourn their dead. The list continued growing, not because animals changed, because our understanding did. And nowhere is this misunderstanding more visible than in the family dog. The animal sleeping beside fireplaces, couches, and beds. The animal so familiar that it became almost invisible. Yet familiarity creates a dangerous illusion. We stop seeing what is extraordinary. A wolf entered human history thousands of years ago, or perhaps humans entered the wolves. Researchers still debate the details. Somewhere in the distant past, cautious predators began lingering near human settlements. The relationship evolved slowly, generation after generation, over centuries, then millennia, until one species became woven into the psychology of another. No wild animal has spent more time studying human behavior than dogs. Not scientists, not historians. Dogs. For thousands of years they watched us hunt, fight, migrate, celebrate, grieve, sleep, wake, leave, return. Entire civilizations rose and collapsed while dogs remained at humanity's side, observing. The result was not merely domestication. It was coevolution, a biological partnership so successful that it reshaped both species. And perhaps that partnership produced abilities we still do not fully understand. Most people assume they know how dogs experience the world. That assumption is our first mistake, because the dog's reality barely resembles our own. A human enters a room and sees objects. A dog enters the same room and encounters histories. Invisible trails drift through the air like ghostly fingerprints. Every scent carries information. Who was here when they arrived, where they moved, how they felt, whether they were healthy, whether they were afraid. The room becomes a living archive, a constantly updating record of events hidden beyond human perception. Researchers estimate that a dog's sense of smell may be tens of thousands of times more sensitive than our own. Some estimates suggest even greater differences depending on the task. The numbers almost stop being meaningful. Imagine hearing conversations from miles away. Imagine reading emotions from a single breath. Imagine detecting changes so subtle they remain completely invisible to everyone around you. Now imagine living inside that world every second of your life. Suddenly, the ordinary dog lying on a kitchen floor becomes something else entirely. Not magical, not supernatural, simply equipped with access to a reality humans rarely notice exists. And that changes everything. Because before we ask whether dogs know we are coming home, we must confront a more uncomfortable possibility. Perhaps they know far more about our movements than we realize. In the late 20th century, reports began accumulating from owners around the world, different countries, different households, different breeds. Yet the stories sounded strangely similar. A dog would become alert, move toward a window, wait by a door, sometimes 10 minutes before someone returned, sometimes 20, sometimes longer. The timing appeared oddly precise. Owners described animals abandoning sleep to sit at entrances long before any audible cue existed. Most scientists remained skeptical, reasonably so. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We remember unusual successes and forget countless failures. Coincidences accumulate, stories become exaggerated, memories distort. The brain edits reality more often than we like to admit. That explanation should have been enough. In many cases, it probably was. But then researchers noticed something strange. The reports refused to disappear. They continued emerging, year after year, from people who had never heard the previous stories, from households with no obvious schedules, from situations where return times were deliberately changed. The mystery persisted, not because extraordinary claims were proven, because ordinary explanations sometimes seemed incomplete. And whenever a mystery survives repeated attempts to kill it, science becomes interested, not because scientists believe, because they doubt. Doubt, after all, is what drives investigation. Then another possibility emerged, one far less mysterious, and perhaps far more impressive. Maybe dogs were not predicting anything. Maybe they were detecting. The distinction matters. Prediction suggests foresight. Detection suggests perception. And perception can appear supernatural when the observer possesses senses we lack. Imagine a familiar human scent slowly fading throughout a house during the day, hour after hour, particle by particle. Now imagine an animal capable of monitoring that change with extraordinary precision. As the scent weakens, perhaps the dog unconsciously tracks its decline. Then, as the absent person moves closer to home, new scent traces begin entering the environment. Tiny atmospheric signals, microscopic clues, far beyond human awareness. The research suggests such possibilities cannot be dismissed, but neither can they fully explain every observation. Because the deeper investigators looked, the stranger the question became. Not stranger because of what dogs might know, stranger because of what humans assume knowledge actually is. For centuries, humans imagined perception as a passive process. The world happens. We observe it. We react. Simple. The brain, according to this view, is little more than a spectator, a witness watching reality unfold. But modern neuroscience tells a different story, a stranger story. Researchers increasingly suspect that the brain is not primarily a machine for perceiving reality. It is a machine for anticipating it. At every moment, your nervous system is constructing predictions about what will happen next. The next sound, the next movement, the next word, the next face around the corner. Reality arrives. The prediction is compared against it. The model updates. Then the process begins again. What we experience as consciousness may be, in part, a control prediction continuously corrected by incoming information, which means the brain is not waiting for the future. It is constantly trying to reach it first. And if prediction is one of the fundamental principles of intelligence, then perhaps the dog waiting by the door is not demonstrating something unusual. Perhaps it is demonstrating something all minds do, only with greater precision. Imagine walking through a city street late at night. Nothing appears wrong, yet something urges you to cross the road. Only later do you realize why. A strange figure, an unusual silence, a collection of details your conscious mind never fully noticed. The feeling arrived first, the explanation arrived later. Most people call this intuition. Scientists often describe it differently. Unconscious processing. The brain gathering information beneath awareness, drawing conclusions before consciousness catches up. The sensation feels mysterious because the calculations remain hidden, and perhaps dogs operate in a similar way, not through magic, not through supernatural foresight, but through perception so refined that its conclusions appear impossible. The dog may not know. The dog may simply notice, far more than we do. Think about the challenge from a dog's perspective. A human is an unpredictable creature. We leave without warning, return at unusual time, change routines, alter moods, travel, disappear. Yet despite the apparent chaos, patterns exist. Tiny patterns. The way someone grabs their keys, the scent left behind during departure, the sound of footsteps on a distant sidewalk, the rhythm of daily life unfolding beyond human awareness. For thousands of years, dogs have been decoding those signals, not because they wanted to, because survival demanded it. The dogs that understood humans thrived. The ones that didn't vanished into history, generation after generation, selection after selection, until eventually humanity created a companion unlike any other, a creature that understands us not through language, but through observation, a silent expert on human behavior. There is another possibility, one that has less to do with senses and more to do with attachment, because dogs do not simply observe humans, they bond with them. Research suggests that when dogs and owners gaze into one another's eyes, both experience biological changes associated with trust and connection. A relationship formed, not symbolic, not imagined, physical, real. For a dog, a human is not merely part of the environment. The human becomes the center of it, and what we value most, we monitor most carefully. Humans do the same thing. A parent wakes instantly at the sound of a child. A loved one notices emotional changes invisible to strangers. Attention follows significance. The important becomes easier to detect. Perhaps the dog's anticipation begins there, not with extraordinary powers, but with extraordinary investment, because few things matter more to the dog than the return of its human. And now the question changes once again. At first, we wondered whether dogs possess a remarkable ability. Then we wondered whether they possess remarkable senses. Eventually we began asking something much larger. What does it actually mean to know something? Humans often associate knowledge with language, with conscious thought, with deliberate understanding. But nature tells a different story. Birds navigate continents. Salmon return to rivers they have never seen since birth. Spiders construct intricate webs without instruction. Knowledge exists throughout the natural world in forms that require no words. Perhaps the dog waiting by the door belongs to that category. A certainty emerging from memory, perception, instinct, and experience. A conclusion reached without explanation, without language, without doubt. And so we arrive back where we began. A quiet house. A patch of afternoon sunlight. A dog lying on the floor. The scene appears ordinary, almost forgettable. Yet hidden inside it is a question that reaches far beyond dogs. A question about mind, about consciousness, about the invisible processes shaping reality beneath awareness. The dog lifts its head. The room remains unchanged. No sound, no movement, no visible signal, nothing, as far as we can tell. And perhaps that final phrase is the most important. As far as we can tell, because throughout history, reality has repeatedly extended beyond the limits of human perception. There are things happening beyond the edge of our awareness. Patterns we do not see, signals we do not detect, information we do not yet understand. The dog waits by the door. A few minutes later, the owner arrives. Perhaps the animal predicted the future. Perhaps it detected clues we cannot perceive. Perhaps it was responding to a world of information hidden in plain sight. The truth is that we still do not know. And maybe that uncertainty is the point. Because every time a dog rises before its owner returns, we are reminded of something easy to forget. The world we experience is not the world as it is. It is only the portion we can perceive. A tiny island of awareness surrounded by an ocean of hidden information. And somewhere beyond the edge of that island, another mind may already know something that, for us, has not happened yet.